Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about the rise of dictators and the decline of European democracies. Now, let us understand that the decline of the rise of dictators is the period between World War I and World War II. So, for many nations, World War I peace had brought not prosperity, but revolution, fueled by economic depression and struggle. After the years in the war, after the war, the post years brought the rise of dictators, powerful dictators, driven by the belief of nationalism. So, what is nationalism? Nationalism is a loyalty to one's nation above all else, and the dreams of territorial expansion. So, what do I mean by this? Let's say I'm American. That means that nationalism means that I um, uh, have loyalty to the United States no matter what it does, good or bad, and that I want the United States to have territorial expansion. Now, this is not my belief, but I'm just explaining that nationalism is loyalties to one's country and wanting the country to expand and spread and have a sphere of influence in the world. So Germans saw nothing fair in the Versailles Treaty. So after World War One, there was something called the Versailles Treaty, and what the Versailles Treaty did was, clear things. Not clear things. It fixed things after World War One. It brought stuff, back to order, or so they thought. So the Germans did not like the Versailles Treaty because the Versailles Treaty blamed, the Germans signed the Versailles Treaty, and the Versailles Treaty blamed the Germans for starting the war. And as we all know, that the Austro-Hungarian Empire is the one who started the war. So nor did they find security in a settlement that stripped them off of their overseas colonies. And the Versailles Treaty also took the German colonies in Africa and stripped it away from the German states. So in the picture below is the leaders of France, England, and the United States deciding the fate of Germany during the Versailles Treaty. So Germany. So Germany was expected to pay off huge war debts, reparations per se, while dealing with widespread poverty, because since they were blamed for the war, they have to pay for their destruction, and so they had to pay reparations while dealing with widespread poverty in Germany. And as we all know, Germany passed through a very hard time after World War I and World War II. So, by 1923, you had an inflating economy that made a 5 million German mark, and German mark is the currency of Germany at the time, worth less than a penny. 5 million. Do you know how great an inflation has to be to okay? And let me explain inflation. So inflation is, let's say, I have $100, and I decided to, and there's this product that's worth $100, right? Now, if I decide that I will print double the amount of money, right? And the value of the product did not change, then the price of the product would be $200 because I made double the number. I printed double the amount of currencies. So, and this is inflation, and it comes through interest, where the government keeps printing money every year, and this creates inflation, and it's presented by the interest system in banks, where the value of a currency is declining. You always hear your grandparents saying, "I could buy 10 stuff with a nickel" when I was young, but now with $10 you can't buy half as many stuff. That is what inflation is. So at the time, by 1923, the German economy was inflated so much that a 5 million German mark was worth less than a penny. In this picture below, here children build blocks with stacks of useless German marks. So the new democratic governments that emerged in Europe after World War One floundered. They failed. And without a democratic tradition in Europe at the time, people turned to authoritarian leaders to solve their economic and social problems that they were dealing at the time. So the new democracies collapsed and dictators were able to seize power. Below we have a picture of Vladimir Lenin. He was a leader in Russia and the leader of the Bolsheviks and the communist movement in Russia. So in Russia, hopes for democracy gave way to civil war, resulting in the establishment of the communist state. As we all know, the democratic system was failing, and communism was a way out because people believed in, communism in theory is very good, where everyone is equal, no one in everything. And so this led to the establishment of a communist state in Russia, officially called the Soviet Union, or the USSR, which stands for the United Socialist Soviet Republic. And it's not a socialist, that's a misconception, it's a communist state. So, after the Russian Revolution, leaders like revolutionary leader Vladimir Lenin died in 1924, and so Joseph Stalin took control of the country. Stalin focused on creating a strong communist state, and as an example and as a sphere of influence. So Stalin made agricultural and industrial growth the prime economic goals of the Soviet Union. So there were two important goals of the Soviet Union that Stalin focused on greatly: agricultural and industrial growth. Stalin abolished all privately owned farms and replaced them with collectives. If you owned a farm, the government would come and say, you know what, this is mine now, because it's everyone's. See what I did there? The government would say, it's mine now, because it's everyone's. And it replaced them with collectives. So collectives would be a large government-owned farm, and worked by hundreds of families. None of them own the farm; they all just work on the farm. So Stalin moved to transform the Soviet Union from a backward rural nation into a great industrial power. All economic activity was placed under the government management, and by 1937, the Soviet Union had become the world's second largest industrial power. Remind you of anything? China. China is the second strongest superpower and number one industrial power, and it is also a communist state. So Stalin eliminated anyone who threatened this power. Stalin was very he was a totalitarian, where he wanted complete control, no opposition. So historians estimate that Stalin was responsible for the death of about 8 to 13 million people. That's a lot of people. So millions more died in famines caused by the reconstructing of the Soviet society, because too much work spread on a wide area and a lot of land, and Russia, as we know, is the largest country land-wise in the world. So by 1939, Stalin had firmly established a totalitarian government. In a totalitarian state, individuals have no rights, the government suppresses all opposition, and there is no private ownership. The government controls everything. Now, that was Russia. Now, I'm going to be talking about fascism in Italy. So while Stalin was consolidating his power in the Soviet Union, Benito Mussolini, I think that's how it's pronounced, I'm not sure, Mussolini, was establishing a totalitarian regime in Italy, where unemployment and inflation produced bitter strikes, and some communists led. So he established this regime because at the time he took power, the government, the state was in such a bad state, such so much unemployment and inflation produced bitter strikes during that time. So Benito Mussolini, alarmed by these threats, the middle and upper classes demanded stronger leadership. A powerful speaker, Mussolini was a powerful speaker, as we all know, and he was a powerful speaker, knew how to appeal to the Italians and to Italy's wounded national pride. He played on the fears of economic collapse and communism. In this way, he won the support of many discontented Italians. By 1921, Mussolini had established the Fascist Party. So fascism stressed nationalism and placed the interests of the state above those of individuals. To strengthen the nation, fascists argued, power must rest with a single strong leader and a small group of devoted party members. Unlike the democratic system, we believe that to strengthen the nation, power must rest with the people, because a leader, a dictator, would be authoritative and unjust. So in October 1922, Mussolini marched on Rome with thousands of his followers, whose black uniforms gave them the name Black Shirts. When government officials, the army, and the police sided with the fascists, the Italian king had no choice but to appoint Mussolini as the head of state. And by the way, this is a move by the king, as if you understand that the king did this sly move to appeal to ease in stress, people's stress. So, calling himself Il Duce, or the leader, Mussolini extended fascist control to every aspect of Italian life. Mussolini crushed all opposition by making Italy a totalitarian state. Benito Mussolini once said, "Italy wants peace, work, and calm. I will give these things with love if possible, with force if necessary." So as we can see, he's very clear on his objectives. In Germany, on the other hand, Adolf Hitler followed a path to power similar to Mussolini's. At the end of World War I, Hitler had been a jobless soldier drifting around Germany. In 1919, he joined a struggling group called the National Socialist German Workers' Party, better known as the Nazis. It was the Nazis' party. Hitler proved to be a powerful speaker, an organizer, and quickly became the party's leader. And calling himself Der Führer, the leader in German, we could see the irony of that. He promised to bring Germany out of the chaos. So we could see here you have the Nazis over here, and you have Hitler speaking to them. Hitler's book Mein Kampf, My Struggle. So Hitler wrote a book while he was in prison. Hitler set forth the basic beliefs of Nazism that became the plan of action for the Nazis' party. Nazism is the German brand of fascism, based on extreme nationalism. Hitler, who had been born in Austria, dreamed of uniting all German-speaking people in a great German empire. So Hitler wanted to enforce racial purification at home. In his view, Germans, especially blue-eyed, blonde-haired Aryans, formed a master race. They were destined to rule the world. And he called there was such thing as inferior races, such as anti-Semitics, which are Jews, Arabs, but mainly because Germany at the time did not have Arabs, they were Jews that were focused on. You had Slavs, which were Balkan, which means Balkan nations, and all the non-whites who were deemed fit only to serve the Aryans. And a third element of Nazism was national expansion. Hitler believed that Germany To thrive, it needed more Lebensum, or living space, expansion. This was my video, and thank you for watching. This was the